This is my 1949 Studebaker 2R5 half-ton pickup truck that my sister and I are in the process of restoring. And today I just want to talk about mounting the radiator mounting bracket and subsequently the radiator back onto the vehicle. This is the radiator mounting bracket that the radiator will mount to. It's actually facing backwards right now because I just want to show you where the radiator mounts to. The radiator mounts to several points. There are 3 mounting bolts here on this side and on this side here. And then the bottom of the radiator has some fins to it that slide into a slot here and a slot here on the radiator mounting bracket. One of the things I discovered after getting it sandblasted and powder coated was that the sandblasting did not clear out all the old rust and sand that had built in over 75 years in these slots right here. And so I ended up having to take a Dremel with a grinder blade, a small file, and do a lot of chipping away to get out the old sand and rust that was in there so that my radiator could sit back down inside of there. So I just want to share that with you, that if you pull your mount, clear that out before you take it to get sandblasted, and save you some time there. Each of these mounting bolts, I re-tapped those out so that the bolts would go in relatively easy. There's 3 on each side. These are 5/16 bolts with coarse threads. There are several other mounting points that were threaded on this support bracket. Up here on the top, these 2 5/16 bolts are where the wiring harness goes from the passenger side over to the driver's side, and that's how the wire goes across the radiator there. And then you see these bolts here on this side. And on this side, this is where the bus bar, there's a 3-point bus bar that connects the headlights together, and that's where the bus bar gets mounted on the side. And these are 1/4-inch bolts, coarse thread. The bracket itself also has a mounting point in the very center here, in which it requires this kind of bolt. It's a 1/2-inch bolt, fine thread. It's actually looks like it's got a welded head onto it that sits down into the radiator itself. The issue I had was this one was getting gouged out and needed to be replaced. I had another one of these, and so what I did was I just cut the bolt off, and then I just drilled out this hole to a 1/2-inch hole. And then I went down and I found this 1/2-inch bolt, fine thread, 3 3/4 inches long, and I used that to go into that washer. As a result, this is what I ended up with. I ran the bolt through, re-welded it to this mounting washer there, and that's what I'm going to use now to mount my radiator. Parts book also mentioned shims, metal shims, and there were various thicknesses. I used an 1/8-inch piece of metal that's 2 inches wide by about 3 inches long. Put me a 1/2-inch hole in the middle there, and that's also going to be part of the mounting system. This rubber washer slash bushing is really just a tire sidewall. I cut this out and drilled out the hole there to slide over this 1/2-inch bolt, and that's what goes there too. So this bolt goes into the frame here, and then between the radiator mounting bracket and this cross member here, we'll slide on this shim, and then we'll slide this bushing, and this bushing will actually lay on the cross member right here, and that'll kind of give us some kind of a shock mitigation for the radiator mounting bracket. And then underneath the cross member, I'll have another shim that I put together to slide up into there. And then we'll have this 3.5-inch coil spring, which goes on there. It has these washer caps that go on the top and bottom of it. And then after that I just got another flat washer. Then you got your mounting nut, and then you have a locking nut that came off the vehicle. I'm going to reuse that for the system. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, what it takes to mount this to the center here. That's only one mounting point. I just want to point out that the fenders actually mount or connect to this radiator mounting bracket on the sides here. There are 4 mounting points on each side that connect to the fenders, and that's what gives it the stability to stay straight and all that. Since I'm not going to have my fenders on all the time, I actually made some brackets that I'll show you here in a little bit that I'm going to connect to this radiator mounting bracket to keep it from wobbling on me and keep it steady. The last thing is I did dry mount the radiator. I laid it down on the mounting bracket here, and I discovered a couple of things. I'm glad I ended up doing that. Apparently something had happened previously, and the center here had been pushed in slightly, and so the distance from the bolts at the top and at the bottom were a little bit wider than here. So I got me a bottle jack and just kind of squeezed that out about 1/8 of an inch, and that brought that back in alignment. And then the last thing I did, there was a couple of holes on the radiator that I had to elongate a little bit to line up with my mounting bolts here, and you'll see that in a little bit. So with that, we'll go ahead and get this thing ready to mount. Again, this is backwards, so I'm going to turn it around. Okay, and so you'll see the smooth side here. This is what's going to be facing forward, and the radiator actually gets mounted to the back side there. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take our mounting bolt. It's going to slide in right here into the radiator mounting bracket, and then it's going to go into there. The next thing I want to do is I want to put the shim and then the rubber washing on there. Okay, so now those are on there, and what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and slide it over the mounting hole here, slide it down, and that's where it will mount to. Got this shim here. Okay, so I kind of got her there. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. And the last thing is this locking nut will go in there to help keep this from backing off. Okay, so the locking nut will go in there. And that's how it kind of mounts there with the center one. I'll go ahead and tighten that down here in a little bit. And what I want to do next is talk about my support brackets. This is the support bracket I put together to help stabilize my radiator support bracket here. It's really just a piece of angle iron that was used for old shelving material. I took and cut off about a 19-inch long piece, trimmed off the edges here, trimmed off the edges here, bent this down a little bit, and then I'll just take that, and there's a mounting point down here on the frame that I can go through. I got some 1/4-inch bolts and nuts to mount it to, but I'll mount it there, and I'll mount it also up here on the frame. So we'll go ahead and just do that right quick. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. Same thing on the other side. I've got this same mounting hole on the other side. Comes up, mounts into the radiator support bracket up here. I've already got that one in on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these all down, and once that's completed, we'll put the radiator in.